Okay, so the last thing we did was we wrapped our actual MonoGame game. Now, to make a game, you inherit from Game Manager using our game engine. And you have to implement these three functions: start, update, draw. So let's actually draw something. So in order to do that, let's make a game object. Gonna steal Unity's thunder and call it a game object. And what does every game object have? Has a transform. So let's say, let's say struct transform, and let's say public vector 2. And we'll have to add a reference here. We're already using public vector 2 position, and because we're only gonna, this is gonna be a 2D engine. Public float rotation 2D, you can only rotate on one axis. And what else? Public vector to scale. Yeah. And let's say our game object has a transform. And we'll give it a name too. What can we do here? And this is I like the idea of, in a 2D engine, just making everything a rectangle. So that way, like say we wanted to go debug mode, we could see the bounds of every single thing in our game here. And let's just every single game object. So let's create a rectangle. We'll call it rect. And that will be a property, so you know, whenever we reference it, we'll create this rectangle. And let's just use our transform position and our transform scale here. And what else we need to make that work is give everything a texture 2D. And we'll add a reference to graphics. Okay, so we just added a rectangle and a texture 2D. And what's wrong with this? Oh, we gotta say 2 point here. What's a point? And this will actually be, this transform.scale will be multiplied by our texture dot, what is it? Bounds dot size? Yeah, that looks right to me. So our scale actually means something. We'll check the size of our texture and multiply it by that. And we can, I don't know, do something like that. I don't know if that's more readable. Who cares? Yeah. So now we can say gameObject has a draw function. And we can draw any game object now. And we'll have to be passed a sprite batch. Let's say sprite batch draw texture rect, and we'll just say color.white. Okay, so now we actually have to populate texture and transform a name. So let's make a constructor. Build a game object. Let's just pass those three things. String name. I like to give my arguments underscores if they're just in constructors. Let's see, what do we want? Let's do, let's not worry about the transform. Let's make them set that. And we'll say texture 2D texture. Name equals name. Texture equals texture. Alright. Yeah. This looks pretty good to me. I think we can use this. So, in our game manager, to draw, we haven't set this up yet. We have to wrap our sprite batch calls with begin. Oops, what am I doing? Dot begin and sprite batch dot end. Yeah, and now, actually, what we gotta do is pass the sprite batch here and update. First, oops, no, and drop. In our abstract draw. And we'll pass it here. Sprite batch. So now we can go into our game. Again, here we're referencing more XNA stuff, but whatever, we'll have to deal with that later. What we want to do now is let's create a game object. Game object, go, in start, we'll say go equals new game object. And we'll call it test go. And we got to pass the texture. So let's create a new texture. Texture 2D dot, texture 2D. Texture equals new texture 2D. And we have reference to our graphics device. And let's call it 32 by 30. Let's call it 64 by 64. And now we get a loop through. We gotta create a color array. And ideally, we'll wrap all of this. But we have to create a color array. Of every pixel. So let's change this. Let's keep that number in one place. Length, yeah. And now we can just set each color to whatever color we want. Let's use green now. And we'll say texture dot set data color with calls. Now we can use texture, and now texture will be a 64 by 64 pixel green square. Add position 0, 0, so top left corner, this name, and we gotta draw it. We gotta say go, draw, SP. Let's see. Where is it? It's not there. Oh, and that's because our transform initializes to a scale of 0. So we have to say transform equals new transform. Can I do this? Oops. Where the position equals new vector 2, 0, 0, which is the default, but let's just set it here. Rotation equals 0f, and scale equals new vector 2, 1, 1. That's what we want. Now this should work. And it does. Cool.